For modern Star Wars toy collectors, the Power of the Force 2 line is really one of the most memorable. Not only because it lasted so long, I mean, second only to the Vintage collection, but that's kind of a line of a whole other color. The Power of the Force 2 line gave us virtually the entire Star Wars universe. I mean, a ton of characters over a 4.5-year period. Everything from single-carded release of major characters to 3-packs of major characters to vehicles that went with major characters. Okay, they did minor characters too. And the thing with Power of the Force 2 is, while it gave us virtually the entire Star Wars universe in 3 3/4, for so many figures, it was not the last stop on their action figure caboose. Action figure train? The caboose is at the end of the train. I don't know. I can't do metaphors. But the point being is that most figures from Power of the Force 2 era went on to have better versions of those figures made. Much like Princess Leia here, you can see how after the 300th Boba Fett corrected the scale for the entire line, we got better scaled figures. So, another good example, Yak Face. Hard to find in the Vintage line, came out in Power of the Force 2 because of that, to finally give everyone a Yak Face, and then got remade in the Vintage line years later. So many figures either getting a updated sculpt or getting re-released, like Aunt Beru here, who first came on a single card, then got re-released in the Disturbance at the Lars Homestead Toys R Us pack, which also had a Womp Rat, or the Jabba's Palace Band, which got re-released as a series of packs as well. So many characters getting re-released, and we're not going to talk about Expanded Universe in this video at all. There were quite a few Expanded Universe figures put out during Power of the Force 2, but we're sticking with Classic Trilogy here. So there are a handful of figures that never had another version, or, again, like Bomar Monk here, just got re-released later in the line. So let's take a look at those figures, and to do so, I want to start with
these two droids.
Yes, these two droids. The two droids from Jabba's Dungeon, 88 and EV-99. For those of you unfamiliar with them, this one being EV-99 was the head of Jabba's droid pool, if you were, and 88 was the lead torturer, because droids have feelings? Okay, well, they were both released in Power of the Force 2, and they both had 100% sculpts, like almost every character in Power of the Force 2, and that's kind of one of the issues with them, is they're droids, and droids take a lot of sculpting because they're unique, and whether you're using them as paperweights on the floor or decoration for your shelf, they need to look correct. Now, they do have updates that could be done. For example, EV-99 is supposed to be sitting, and both of these droids actually get more screen time in the Disney Plus shows, with both as the bartender in the Mos Eisley Cantina and Jabba's new translator droid. So they both found a new home. Are we going to get updated versions? Especially when both of these figures, I think the vintage original figure is actually better than the Power of the Force 2. It's a rare thing, very rare. But I think with both of these droids, the one we had as a kid passes these. And whether you want to torture your droids or just have something for your living room, probably won't see redos anytime soon. Speaking of droids that won't have a redo anytime soon, the ASP droid. And if you're wondering what the heck is the ASP droid, I don't even remember that. It was in the special edition. It was one of the things that got added, and because it came out at the time of the special edition, which was being celebrated in the toy aisle, well, hey, more droids. Because we honestly had so few droids back then, and getting a new one, even if it came with some yellow sticks, hey, it was cool, and we all like to complete our Streets of Mos Eisley scene. Now, if that was a redo, I'm sure it would more go in this direction, where Vader used these droids in the Shadows of the Empire story as lightsaber training. I never understood why they didn't release this version. It feels like it would have sold so much better. Oh well, at least we have one figure. Now, speaking of the special editions, here's another guy that got the boot quite literally. So Lax Sivrak, who is the wolf man of the cantina. There's also a coyote man. There's two wolves. This is the one that we see talking to Dai Ziberon, and there have been other versions of his species done. But for those of you wanting to recreate your cantina with plastic versions, well, you got to get a new version because Laxi Vrak was erased from existence, as Doc Brown would say. So yeah, George just felt this mask wasn't up to par and asked for a digital remake, and he's one of the two cantina aliens that got the boot. It would be great to get an update of him, especially because he actually does wear red, not tan, in the movie, if you look. But again, because he's already been deleted from the original footage and replaced by a different alien, chances of getting a fully sculpted Wolfman again, slim to none. All right, the other alien pool being Jabba's palace, not just the cantina, we have this guy, otherwise known as Ishi-Tib. Now, Ishi-Tib is not a character's name. It is a species name, like Chewbacca is a Wookiee, or Luke is a human. Now, we see Ishi-Tibs all over the place, but this one that was released as Ishi-Tib, and that would be, again, like releasing Chewbacca as Wookiee, well, it wasn't the Ishi-Tib we were expecting. This isn't the alien you're looking for. We wanted this guy, the guy who's like right behind Luke Skywalker in Jabba's palace and seen prominently in a lot of the pre-production stills. We did get a version of this Ishi-Tib in the action fleet. There he is at the top left there. But the version we got in Power of the Force 2 is this guy. One of the Ishi-Tib from the Home One briefing scene. You remember the briefing scene, right? Where they decide they're going to blow up the Death Star again. And everyone gathers around and learns how to blow it up again. Well, yep, all the way in the background. No speaking lines, no close-up. This Ishi-Tib guy. So can we get a remake of him? Well, for his amount of screen time, the chance of getting a vintage collection version, even though they might be able to fake it with some of the existing tooling, I don't know. Now, speaking of the Home One briefing scene, there's another major character that's never had a redo outside of Power of the Force 2, and that's none other than Mon Mothma herself, or as we called her, Mon Mothma Hall, after our AP U.S. history teacher in high school. Now, Mon Mothma never got another figure. It would be great to get her on a vintage card. She's so important to the story. I mean, she's the leader of the rebellion, the way like the Emperor is the leader of the Empire. Oh, to get it? Well, anyway. We did get a Republic Senator version, because kids loved playing with senators, but this is from the prequels, different dress, different outfit, different actress. It really feels like a figure that if the vintage line had continued under Kenner, we might have gotten it. I mean, she is aspirational to some fans, and she shows up in a lot of other content, specifically the new animation and all of the Disney Plus shows and in Rogue One. So with so much more screen time and the fact that she's a dead ringer for Judi Dench, it'd be awesome to have Q or M and the leader of the rebellion be the same actress. So yeah, maybe we'll even get her in the retro line. Who knows, to fulfill that vintage fantasy. All right, what about this guy? Okay, Potsnitkin. Not to be confused with David Snitkin, the world champion poker player. I had never heard of Potsnitkin before I collected Power of the Force 2, to tell you the truth. And I thought I knew Star Wars. He's one of Jabba's henchmen, like pretty much all the weird-looking aliens from Return of the Jedi. Specifically, he's the guy driving the skiff, and not just any skiff, but the second guard skiff. And you can also see him in Jabba's palace behind the six-breasted dancer chick there. So there are two skiffs. There's the prisoner skiff, the one with our heroes, and then there's the second skiff that just has a bunch of henchmen. So Potsnitkin is the one driving that skiff. And, hey, just like everyone else, you got a card in the Decipher game because that's the way things work. So for those of you who have skiffs and need a driver, it's awesome to plunk him in there. But he does kind of call for a redo, and the fact that he's one of the few figures to not have one, he probably would have been great when the vintage collection was on fire a few years ago. Now he's going to take a lot of tooling, and that, again, is going to make it really hard to revisit this guy. I do think he's one of the rare figures that could benefit from soft goods, because the current hard cloak, you actually have to take it off to fit it in a small drawer, and underneath he's got this really gaudy orange thing going. So, yeah, I'd love a second crack at this guy. All right, what about major characters? Well, one of the ones that really stands out is this gal. You may know her as Leia Organa, and I'm telling you, that Endor outfit is pretty awesome and aspirational for cosplay, especially for women with long hair. It's the only time she lets her hair down. Now, we did get a 6-inch version of this figure very recently in the Black Series, but as far as 3 3/4, nope. We've only had this version and then re-released again with soft goods in the Princess Leia collection, but all Power of the Force 2. There's been a lot of talk about seeing her reappear in the vintage line because, hey, main character, huge outfit with a lot of screen time, makes sense that we would get it, but nope, just haven't. Now, speaking of Endor, we have the Endor Trooper, who, while we've had many Endor Troopers, this one technically hasn't been remade.
You are technically correct. The best kind of correct.
There are a lot of different versions of the Endor Rebel Trooper, and we've had a lot of figures over them throughout the years, a lot of times with head swaps. But I'm talking about this specific trooper, this look, the one with the padded jeans and the backpack that is sort of more like flung over the shoulder. It's because it was the vintage toy, this one. And while it's great that we've gotten Endor Troopers on vintage cards in the vintage collection with lots of articulation, the only time we've gotten the vintage Trooper is in Power of the Force 2. So we still haven't gotten an update of this specific version because again, there's a lot of versions, and it'd be great to get the one that was in the vintage line because it's the one we grew up with, and, you know, hey. All right, closing it off with another biggie and another droid. Can you believe we've never gotten to 1B, the only droid with a medical license? I mean, yes, we did get a vintage, well, obviously we had the original version that, you know, as kids was amazing, especially with that blue color. And we got this surgical 21B droid in the 30th anniversary line, but this is from Revenge of the Sith. Same class of droid, different colors, and you'll notice actually even the pieces aren't the same. The arms and the legs are different from the version in Empire. You can clearly see here in this wide shot, the legs match very closely to the vintage toy, not the 30th anniversary toy. So different droid, just same type. It would be great to get the actual one from Hoth, because that's the one that we all loved growing up. I mean, it was a big part of, you know, our play, because these were the droids that could fix our heroes after battle. And with all the tooling, though, I don't know. Honorable mention, Tessic, aka Squidhead, though not a Power of the Force 2. This was a figure that was released in Power of the Jedi, and it's still the only Tessic/Squidhead we've ever gotten. And if you're like me, which I know I am, I loved my Squidhead growing up and would love to see another one. So those are all the figures that were released in Power of the Force 2 that never got a re-release or an updated sculpt. Did I miss any? Let me know in the comments below. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.